So then I will probably start. Yes, I would like to present the result of the work that was developed during the summer school. And the topic of the research is ways to succeed at different types of universities. I will briefly discuss the context and my motivation. So the motivation for this work is the following. During the previous years, there were many policies from the government, from universities, and the overall situation in higher education sector was changing. And therefore, the roles of the faculty members has also been modified. First of all, the teaching component was changed. And now faculty members also have two new components, research and administrative. And in order to be successful at a university, they need to balance between these three types of duties. And the question is how to balance all these components. The main part of the work is the situation in the Russian higher education sector. So first of all, I would like to discuss how the motivation is formed. We don't have any academic market because faculty members do not compete outside universities, and only the government sets several policies on universities. And universities, they need to reallocate the budget they get, and therefore they create incentive contracts for their faculty members. And in case workers succeed, they get some bonuses, or if not, they may get some penalties. And with the help of this scheme, the motivation for faculty is created so that they can improve their performance and get some bonuses. The research in Russia existed separately from the education sector, and only starting from 2006, the government implemented several policies that created a group of elite universities doing research. And now the major part of these elite universities are those that participated in the Project 5100, which is the Russian University Excellence Initiative. Because these universities get some additional funding in order to boost their performance on the global market, and the main component of this performance is research. And if we speak about the way faculty members are remunerated and are given bonuses, first of all, we have incentive contracts that were introduced instead of a unified wage scale. And moreover, in 2012, there was a policy that tried to boost the faculty salary. And it was said that the faculty salary must be not less than the average salary in the economy multiplied by 2. And now universities provide annual reports on how well they succeed in this policy. Therefore, I consider that it would be appropriate to use the following data. First of all, I used the survey, which was conducted in 2017-2018. And this survey includes only Russian faculty, meaning that international faculty members are not included in the data set. And also I take average salaries at universities from the website of monitoring of university efficiency. In my dataset, I divided the state universities into two categories. The first of them are those that are focused mostly on research, and these are universities that participated in the Project 5100. And other universities are mostly teaching oriented, and they are not the participants of this project. Before going to the model and the results, I would like to focus a little bit on the data. And on the slide, you can see those variables that are higher for research-oriented universities or for teaching-oriented. And we can see that all the wages, individual wages or average wages, they are higher in research-oriented universities, as well as the average experience, meaning that people there are with more years of experience than in teaching-oriented universities. Also, if we focus on papers, we can see that in research-oriented universities, people publish more foreign or top papers than in teaching-oriented, while in teaching-oriented universities, faculty members publish more papers in Russian journals or papers written without any authors, like without any collaboration. And so I would like to discuss the model I use. My main model is the regression, with the response variable being the difference between the individual wage of a person and the average wage at this university. And why is this difference really important? Because universities are professional organizations, and it is really important for their members to be to have good reputation and to be like they have something like competition inside these universities, and therefore they try to be better than an average level. And in case they succeed, in case this delta is positive, we perceive it as a bonus for their work, or otherwise it is a penalty. And you can see that I used different sets of explanatory variables connected with seniority, with duties, with teaching, with papers. And I also controlled for individual factors and for regional factor, which was the dummy for university being located in Moscow or St. Petersburg. And these are the first results of estimation of this model. You can see that those variables that are in bold, they are similar for both types of universities, but there are also variables that are different at different types of universities. For example, we can see that senior administrative post is significant for success at both types of universities. However, teaching-oriented universities also give bonuses for a faculty member being on a senior teaching or research position. We can see that teaching-oriented universities pay bonuses for candidate degrees and doctoral degrees, while research-oriented universities pay only for doctoral degrees. As for publications, teaching-oriented universities, they pay bonuses for those faculty members who publish foreign papers, while research-oriented universities, they take care of quality, and therefore a person can succeed there in case he or she publishes top journals from Scopus or Web of Science journals. And we can see that the dummy for regional factor also matters, and I will later also focus on it. Then I made some kind of switching, and I asked a question: and what if faculty members change the type of university they now work in? So meaning that people from research-oriented universities will go to teaching-oriented and vice versa. And the results are the following: that those faculty who now work at research-oriented universities, they would be relatively more successful at teaching-oriented universities in comparison to their current position, and in comparison to those faculty members who already work at teaching-oriented universities. However, the positive is unlikely, and research-oriented universities will not be interested in faculty coming from teaching-oriented universities. Then during the summer school, I was frequently asked the same question: why should I use the data from monitoring of university efficiency if this data is reported by universities, and it might be biased because universities might want to overstate the actual numbers. And therefore, I decided to make the same estimations, but using the average calculated on the basis of my survey that I use as a main data source. And these wages are reported by individuals. First of all, I tested for statistical, like whether these averages reported by monitoring and the survey are different or not. And the tests show that they are not statistically the same, so they are different. But when I use them in my models, the results show that these results are the same, even if we change the average wage we use. And the estimation and prediction results do not change if I change the average wage in my model, in my response variable. And thus, I can draw the following conclusions on the basis of what I have obtained during my research. First of all, at teaching-oriented universities, administrative duties are important for the success of faculty members. However, if we speak about senior administrative post, this position is important for success at both types of universities. And also, if we speak about just administrative post, not senior post or not administrative duties, this variables is not significant at any types of universities. If faculty members want to succeed at research-oriented universities, they should focus on research quality, not just publishing any papers and not even publishing papers at foreign journals. And also at the beginning, it was mentioned that now we have incentive contracts introduced at universities. And we can see that despite they were introduced almost 10 years ago, still there are some features of unified wage scale that are important for success at both types of universities. For example, experience or the academic degree a person has. However, incentive contract features are also becoming significant for faculty success. We have seen that research and teaching and administrative things that have a correlation with the performance of faculty members are significant. So at the end of my presentation, I would also focus on limitations of my work. First of all, I use questionnaire data, and self-reported wages that people write there might be biased. I don't suppose that there must be repeated bias, like a tendency. However, still we cannot rely on these results 100%. And also, if we speak about this average wage for comparison, like being monitoring or APEC wage, still there is no answer for the question which wage is it is better to use, but we can see that still the results are the same no matter what average to use. I would like to thank all the audience for the attention. And also I would like to thank my supervisors who were Denis and Victor, because they provided me with the guidance during the whole summer school. And my research was improved by their help and by their advice. So thank you for your attention. I will be glad to answer your questions if you have any, and to listen to your comments.
Anastasia, thank you for your presentation. Now let's listen to the questions and comments we have. Olga.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting results. I have a very specific question. Maybe it's a little bit silly, but still. So you mentioned that the types, all the types of, so to say, that are included in the faculty contract right now, I mean, teaching, research, and administration tasks are important. But my question would be, to what extent each of those is important? I mean, is, for example, teaching more important, or research is more important, or administration? Because from your results, I have got a feeling that everything is equally important. And well, you should just go for it. But we know that well, you should really make some priorities, and probably it would just be interesting to see if there is such an analysis. And also just a small comment. So you put a sad smiley face, not a smiley face, but just a sad face in front of a teaching university. But I think that teaching university does not mean that it's a bad university. So just I think that if you want to publish it in an international journal, you should probably a little bit more. You should have a little bit more tolerance to teaching universities, because, well, there are some of them that are pretty good in what they do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. Actually, as for this face, I suppose that it was on the slide where I mentioned like switching prediction results, and this face was not near the universities, but near the whole sentence, meaning that this has a negative result. But okay, yes, I agree with you. Maybe I should change the visual component to make it clear. Thank you.
I have also one question. in terms of the distinction between teaching and research universities. So I'm not sure. So are we in HSE teaching or research university?
According to my division, HSE is a research university.
Research university, but as far as I know, we have relatively more candidates of science. So we have relatively low fraction of doctors of science compared to other universities which are behind us. So in terms of the criteria you mentioned, I'm not sure that all of them are reliable. And you might just use the categories that you mentioned in the beginning, so national research universities or members of the Project 500 or some official characteristics of universities, so it will be more solid, because now it looks like those who are good in research, we seem to be better in teaching as well, according to the policy of Russian Federation, as we cooperate with regional universities trying to improve the teaching quality there.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
I think we have more questions here.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question here. Have you considered, like in your second study, have you considered the reasons to relocate and some kind of delay maybe in payment? I mean, if in 1 year a person relocates, it does not, if my concerns are right, it doesn't mean that at the very same year, this person starts earning the sum of money that is stated in a survey. So, so if you're gonna use it, or maybe you have control for something like that.
Yes, like as for the papers, it is I use it in my research because the question that was asked to individuals was the amount of paper, the number of papers published over the last 3 years. And usually, I guess it is more or less the same period for what they get paid, meaning that, yes, you're right, of course, that they are not paid the same moment, the same year. So there is a lag, but like I have tried to use like to control for it in my research, but maybe I can also use the data set that was previously like taken, and the lag will be more solid.
Nastia, thank you for your presentation. Actually, you did a great work in addressing the comments which we provided to your work. Still, there's one comment which wasn't addressed, and I think it's quite relevant. As far as you know, there already were several papers for Russia which were devoted to this topic. And what is a particular contribution of your paper? Could you more sharply emphasize?
Yes,
Except
thank
for
you.
Except for the fact that you analyze it using different data sets.
Yes, thank you. So in my paper, I do not use the wage as a response variable, but I use this delta. And I think the concept is, although it is similar to the wage concept, I suppose that it has a different logic behind. And so it is different. And also I use this prediction in case faculty members changed the university. But I still have like room for development, and who knows what will happen later and how my paper will be different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from our online participants? Okay, good. Then everything is clear then. And again, I believe those of you who have additional thoughts or comments, contact you directly in order to ask or provide some ideas how to develop your research. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you very much.
Presentation. Now we have Daviy. next presenter, the floor is yours. So you are.
So, good afternoon, dear colleagues. That's my first offline presentation. That's why I'm a bit nervous, because usually we present online nowadays. Okay, my name is Daviy again, and today I'm going to tell you about the effect that technological adoption may have on firm performance. And I try to investigate it in case of ERP system adoption and try to understand if regional environment may have any impact on the relationship between the technology adoption and firm performance. And my paper and my research is done on data from Russia. Speaking about my research motivation or research interest, first of all, we know that any company is operating in its environment, and this environment can be very complex and multi-level. From the theory, we also know that any firm making any decision should be aligned with its environment in order to be profitable and alive. In regard to technology adoption, theory says that technology adoption should positively impact firm performance, and there are a lot of evidence confirming this idea. However, again, returning to this organization-environment relationship, we understand that technology adoption and firm performance should be investigated, taking into account some regional environment of a company. And regarding this issue, unfortunately, I couldn't find any empirical evidence that regional environment moderate or have any impact on this relationship between technology adoption and firm performance. Just to again to clarify, there are some data that confirm the relationship between technology adoption and firm performance, and according from this research, we know that these relationships are positive. It means that technology adoption indeed impact firm performance. And there are some studies that include regional environment into this relationship. However, when we speak about the data, here we see some kind of limitations, because impact of technology adoption on firm performance is usually studied with the use of longitudinal data. However, these research do not incorporate regional environment. And when we see some studies when regional environment is incorporated into this research, these studies usually employ survey data and work with 1 year data. And here is our limitation. And later I will try to explain why we see a gap here. When we, so if you look at this picture that I found in a paper of Aral, yeah, it's the link, it's not visible here, Aral, Brynjolfsson and Wu. This is true data that describes the process of ERP adoption in a company. So if you look at this picture, you may see that the process of adoption is very long from the time perspective, and it also requires a lot of stages to be involved. That means that when a firm wants to introduce any new technology into a company, it means that first of all, a company needs to buy this technology and then go through a lot of stages. That means technology implementation, technology use, and so on and so forth. And according to this, I believe, representative picture, we may understand that if we want to measure the effect of technology adoption in a short-term perspective, sometimes we can't see it, we can't capture it because company still in the process of adoption. That is why it's practically speaking impossible. And this is also a part of productivity paradox. When a company trying to measure some productivity gain after technology adoption doesn't see it because and instead of seeing some gain, see some lack in productivity. And this picture explains this situation because technology is still in the process of implementation. That is why when we try to measure the results of technology adoption on productivity in a long-term perspective, yes, indeed, we see the improvement in labor productivity. And there are a lot of studies that demonstrate this effect. And it's quite, I believe, explainable or obvious because when technology is implemented, we need some time to do it. We need to develop some new skills. We need to develop some new practices. Maybe we need to change something in a business processes. That is why, yeah, after some time, we may see these results. And in regard to some ERP adoption, there are some studies, longitudinal studies, that demonstrate that ERP adoption indeed increased productivity by some substantial amount of percent. Trying to think about regional environment again, as I said, we understand that environment of any company is multi-level, and it can be formed by the industry, it can be formed by a company, or even the region to which the firm belongs to. And we know that there are some differences in technology adoption with regard to industry to which a firm belongs to, with regard to countries which a firm belongs to. However, as far as I know, studies don't touch the regional environment. That means regional, subnational regional environment of a company, maybe because it's a bit difficult to find such data. And at the same time, when we speak about big countries or emerging countries, the context, the regional context of these countries is very different. That is why sometimes it's very needed to take into account the regional environment of such countries, because country effect can capture the in-country heterogeneity. Narrowing down, when we speak about regional environment in case of technology adoption, it's very important to think about different dimensions of this environment, and technology adoption can be driven by enabling infrastructure, enabling technological infrastructure, and there are some empirical evidence supporting this idea. At the same time, regional environment can be presented by the technology adoption of other participants, of other companies that operate in the same region. And it means that the other companies operating in the same region also may create some sort of benchmark for other companies in terms of technology adoption. And again, we found some studies that demonstrate that competitive pressure, competitive orientation may have some significant effect on technology adoption. Trying to take everything into account, we developed two hypotheses. And the first one is that technology adoption. In our study, we are going to work with ERP system adoption because these systems are very, let's say, demanding in companies. They help to, they may cause some changes in productivity. So the first hypothesis is about the relationship between the technology adoption, in our case, again, ERP adoption, and its impact on firm productivity. And based on the previous studies, we expect to see some positive relationship here. And the second hypothesis, that's the most important in our case, is to measure the effect that regional technological environment may play on the relationship between these technology adoption and firm productivity. And let me describe here a bit our econometric strategy. First of all, we understand here that we need to differentiate two effects. First of all, we need to understand that the average effect of technology adoption, and we need to understand the moderation effect of regional technological environment. And by doing so, we decided to introduce an extra variable that help us to understand if a company truly belongs and purely and completely belongs to this particular regional environment or no. And in order to do this, we introduce a variable that describes the status of a company, local or federal. By meaning local status, we mean this: the company operates only within the specific region, and its selling and economic activity is restricted by this particular region. And we think that these local companies, so-called local companies, are dependent on this regional technological environment a lot. And there are other companies that we so-called federal companies that operate across many regions, maybe across the whole country, and they have an access to different regions. That is why we think that they are not so dependent on a regional technological environment of a particular region to which they officially belong to. Yep. So, and this is our model specification, and in order to test our two hypotheses, we introduced, first of all, we introduced, sorry, in order to test the second hypothesis that is more interesting for us, and we introduced two interaction effects. The first effect is between the technology adoption and technological environment, and the third interaction effect is between the technology adoption, technological environment, and the status of a company. We test our hypotheses on data obtained from Russian companies. We collected data from RAEX index, and after cleaning and checking everything, our final sample included almost 900 companies, and we had a chance to collect data almost for 10 years. Our companies represent 18 industries and the majority of the Russian regions. A few words about the way of data collection method, because it wasn't trial one. So we used automated content analysis, and in particular, we worked with text mining approach. It means that first of all we created a list of keywords that were associated with different technologies. In our case, they were associated with different ERP technologies. Then we created a script in Python and extract data from the internet. And our final database included the number of mentions that were associated with different companies and different years. And we believe this number of mentions can be used as a proxy for technology adoption. Because if a company is adopting any technology, we believe that these large Russian companies try to inform the other market participants or its stakeholders or just consumers, maybe publicity about this thing, and push it to the internet. In case of Russian regions, we found a lot of relevant indicators, but in our case, we decided to measure regional technological environment through two different components that also was created by different indicators. So we worked with actually speaking, we worked with 3 indicators. The first one is the high-speed internet. So we believe that if company wants to adopt any sophisticated technology, and ERP is a sophisticated technology, the speed of connection to internet can be very important indicator in the regional environment. And also we work with 2 indicators that describe technology adoption behavior of other firms in the same region. So here we decided to choose ICT cost. It means that how much money different companies spent on ICT technology, and ERP adoption that measure share of companies using ERP systems in a region. There are some descriptive statistics that describe our dependent variable and explanatory variable. And I'm trying to describe the results that we got. First of all, we decided to estimate all the regional characteristics separately, and that is why here you see 3 different models. And here you may see that we estimated the effect of technology adoption. In our case, it's Navision, SAP, and Oracle. And then we estimated the interaction effect between technology adoption and regional infrastructure, and technology adoption and regional infrastructure regarding status of a company. Speaking about the effect of technology adoption on firm productivity, we may see here that only SAP ERP system positively impact the productivity, and all other ERP systems do not impact productivity according to our data. When we speak about adoption of ERP system in general, without making any examples of particular technology, we see here that only in case of the last specification, when we used regional share of ERP technology as a indicator of regional environment, we see some positive relationship between ERP adoption and firm productivity. And speaking about the most important thing here, Speaking about the interaction effect, I need to say that while we may look at the interaction effect separately between the technology and regional infrastructure and adding status of a company, we need, if we want to understand, if you want to separate this effect of technology adoption and regional infrastructure, we need to look at the overall effect. And according to the overall effect, only in case of SAP, we found some statistical significant relationship between the technological environment and technology adoption. And yeah. So trying to sum up the results that we got from our data, we may say that the first and the second hypotheses are partly confirmed, because in case of the impact of technology adoption on firm productivity, we found that only SAP adoption was a significant driver of productivity, and ERP adoption positively influenced productivity only in one specification. And when we speak about the second hypothesis, again, we found that only in case of SAP adoption, regional environment play a significant role, and all other variables didn't demonstrate this significant relationship. We believe that our results might be very interesting, or might be without very interesting, and valuable for managers and policymakers, because our results provide some thoughts for thinking that technology should be adopted carefully and thoughtfully, because not, again, according to our results, not all the adopted technology provide any significant improvement in firm productivity. And that is why managers should think about it carefully. And for policy makers, we may recommend to think about development some enabling infrastructure for companies, because again, according to our results, this enabling infrastructure can stimulate companies to adopt some technologies and can help companies to get better results in terms of firm productivity. I believe that is all. Yes. So thank you for your attention. I hope I could deliver my presentation in an understandable way.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Now we have a time for questions. I see we have questions in the audience.
So, very minor issue. I think your regression equation on the slide was not correctly written, because the log of the product is the sum of the logs, so you don't have the interaction. So check your code and check your regression specification. See what I mean? So you got log of something times something times something, but that's of course is the sum of the logs, and that's not what you want when you estimate equation in logs with interactions. But check it, because you know I did see coefficients on the interactions. Check how you code it once again. But that's minor. So more major is, of course, the perennial issue of causality in such relationships, right? So is it that the adoption of ERPs improves firm productivity, or is it that firms that are productive enough, right? So now there's no easy fix. I can say do an experiment, but you know that's a little bit expensive. So what you could do though is, my understanding is that you've got panel data, right? So try exploiting the lag, the dynamic structure of your data. And you can do at least two things, both of them super useful at the current stage of your research, which is and the specification is, sorry, but it's rather naive. So you could regress the productivity today on the adoption dummy of ERP yesterday, right? And you can do sort of quasi-Granger causality test, where you measure the correlation between productivity today and the ERP yesterday, and you compare it with the correlation between the ERP today and productivity yesterday, just to probe into the more strong direction of causality, which should inform your results somehow. Now, neither is a definitive strategy for addressing endogeneity, but I think for the referees in the journals where you will send your work, it will be a signal that at least you took care to address this issue. So very, very interesting, but there is a huge literature looking at the causal versus associative effects of management practices on productivity. It's well worth consulting. The big names are John van Reenen and Nick Bloom, the World Management Survey, But these two simple strategies for looking at causality, I think, are quite feasible, and I would recommend you to try them and communicate the results. So, but it's quite interesting what you do. So, thank you. Is it clear? We can talk later about more technical aspects if you have questions.
Thanks for a very interesting presentation. I'm not an expert in those literature, but I'm also not an expert in ERP system, but as many of us, I am kind of victim of ERP system at their firms. So think about HEC. HEC might be considered as a firm. And HEC now implements a new ERP system, like big system, information system. It didn't mean that we didn't have any before. We did, but we switched from one to another one. And what I learned from the process, first, it's not like one night decision. So we wake up in the morning and we have a new system installed, and then our productivity increases. That's a long and painful process, and everybody understands that for the first period of time, that's going to be a total mess and productivity goes down. And at some time, it then goes up. And the period in which productivity goes down might be quite substantial, and probably depends on a lot of parameters. And some of those parameters also influence firm decision whether to implement that or not. So I do agree with Nick that it's a very complicated story in terms of endogeneity. So that was a comment. So, but I also have a couple of questions. First, do you also consider non-profit firms or just commercial firms which maximize profits?
Yes, only profitable firms and only the large firms on the Russian market.
Okay, okay, yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, and maybe I need to collect all the feedback.
We have a question from Paula in the chat. Would you like to add?
Yes, thank you. So thank you for the presentation, Anna. A simple question: if you have information about public policies, if any, supporting firm technological adoption, and then obviously to control for them in your empirical analysis. This is a question because times ago I had a report, I had to do a report on European policy supporting such kind of firm adoption. They are usually regional public policies, and obviously they can affect the way in which firm move to adopt this kind of technological ERP or whatever. I don't know if it is relevant because I don't know if in Russia there are such kind of policies at regional level, but in any case, could be interesting to think about.
Paola, thank you very much. So far, we didn't include this information, and honestly speaking, we even didn't think about it, but I believe it's very relevant information because our recommendation for policymakers is this one, just to try to develop somehow technological infrastructure in the region in order to help companies to adopt some technologies and get better results. That is why I believe that I try to find something on this point, because I think it's relevant. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if you need, I can send you some materials about these European policies, so you can try to see if there are similar in Russia, or just to have something to start with.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Good. So now we are approaching very important part of any conference or summer school. We have a lunch now, and according to the schedule, we are going back in a little bit more than 1 hour. In 14:40, we will continue and see you again.